starting lineup for your Toronto Blue Jays, managed by John Gibbons.
High and deep and way back at the wall. Goodbye, home run. Josh Donaldson has walked off the Braves. Deep to right. Get up. Blue Jays win 7-6. And he's done it again. Get out of There it is. Strike three. LaTroy Hawkins completes the ninth inning, and the Blue Jays can celebrate their first division title in 22 years.
Texas Rangers down to their final out. Will Venable to pinch hit. The Blue Jays are headed to the American League Championship Series.
Sportsfeld Storytime. Oh, baby. We are back at it again. It's September time. We are looking back at our shared, probably either favorite or second favorite team of our lifetimes, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's hard to... and the good thing about it is they're never talked about.
We never do this. We never mention the 2015 Blue Jays. We are... Basically, this is a continuation of the David Price episode. I know that episode 4 was sort of the look forward for the team, and they look forward for David Price, but it wasn't so much about what happened in that year's playoffs. The debut was very exciting, and the first game was very exciting, and we touched very briefly on the September they had. And of course, everybody remembers the bat flip, and everybody remembers all that craziness. What they may or may not remember is that game ended shittily. That run ended shittily. It ended in 6 games against... I cannot believe the world let the Kansas City Royals into the fucking World Series. But regardless, this is all building. We are building this Storytime look back because we cannot help ourselves. We cannot help but hurt ourselves with our content. We are looking back at Game 6 of the 2015 American League Championship Series.
You know, I feel like this is a game that gets rightly forgotten when we talk about, which is kind of funny because it was the last one of this season. But like, I think in the collective minds of Blue Jays fans, that season ended with Game 5 against Texas, or if you want to be really generous, the last game of the year was actually the Marco Estrada game in Game 5.
Yeah, that's certainly how it felt like.
But like this was a crazy game, and was the last game of this legendary season, and we just don't like to talk about it.
I think it is maybe intentionally. I can't derive my own intentions from a past version of myself, but it is the one that I remember the least. I remember a little bit of rain. I remember Jose Bautista hitting home runs, but the physical blow-by-blow memory of it seems to have been stricken from my record, which I think maybe was intentional. Maybe a sign of where I was mentally in terms of intoxication on that evening as well.
No, I'm with you. And I think that's what's kind of crazy about it. Like, this game had a lot of really weird stuff happen. And but I forgot a lot of it. Rewatching, I was like, oh yeah. Like, for instance, I forgot how most of the runs in this game were scored by the Royals.
Yeah. Oh, hey, Royals. I hate it. I hate it, man. I really do hate it. Like, it's been years, but I'll never forgive the universe for letting the Kansas City Royals win World Series. That's just...
It does feel like it shouldn't have happened, doesn't it?
It does. It feels like it's embarrassing for baseball that this happened.
And it's also like, they just, like, we were so much better than them.
Just let it be the Blue Jays. What? You had Syndergaard versus Dickey right there.
Right. And the Mets were also pretty bad that year. So, like, we probably would have won.
Yeah. Oh, no question. The Jays would have rolled. The fucking Royals won the World Series. Of course the Jays would have won it.
Yeah. Indeed.
Anyway.
Sigh.
You're set up to all this. It basically starts with the David Price excellent debut at the beginning of August. They go on an unbelievable winning streak in August. They're just unstoppable in August and September. It all culminates in a dramatic game against the New York Yankees at Rogers Center, which I attended with my future wife. Russell Martin plays the hero in that one.
2 balles, 2 prises à Russell Martin et voilà le signal de McCann. La balle est frappée avec force au champ gauche et elle est partie! Russell! Le Québec danse! Le Canada danse! Et Russell quel chef d'orchestre! Bonsoir! Elle est partie! Aucun doute. Zach de 3 points. Et maintenant, c'est 4-0.
Marque le premier point sur le but, se bat. Les Nants ont marqué 3. Et on l'attend dans l'abri, mais avec raison, on fight. Mais the party...
Man, like, looking at their schedule from August through to the end of the season, like, just a ridiculous run from August. The start on August 1st, 2015, a game they lost to the Kansas City Royals. The Blue Jays were 53-52. They would lose 17 more games the rest of the year. 2 of which were the final 2 games of the season, which they lost 4 of their last 5 because who cares? Because they'd clinched the East by that point. And so, like, they really, if you take out those 4 games, those 5 games, they went 40-17 from August 1st to the end of the season, which is fucking insane. To your point, that Yankees series in Toronto, capped by the Russell Martin home run, was probably the most, until the playoffs, obviously, that was probably the most fun I'd had at a baseball game in my life.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, yes. No question. That was, they had spent, as you mentioned, the majority of that month building the case that they were not just a playoff contender, but the best team in the division. And, the Yankees were way up when the Price trade, sort of that 500 level team, happened. The Yankees were way up on that division, and the Blue Jays charged, and then absolutely wiped them. And I remember that Russell Martin moment, that home run, being the moment when it really clicked for me, that I was like, this is actually happening. This is actually the Blue Jays are going to win the American League East, and it's real, and I couldn't believe it, honest to God.
Yeah, it was. I remember, like, I went that whole series, all 3 games of that Yankees series, and I remember the first game they won, and it was kind of like, it was fun. Like, it was just fun being in Skydome with people actually, like, giving a shit. And then they lost the second game, but I remember in that second game, I think Deontay Navarro tied it in the home run in the 8th or the 9th. But, like, I remember when Navarro hit the home run, I was like, it was like, the building exploded because they tied the game in the 9th inning or the 8th inning, and it was like, oh, this is cool. And then the Russell home run was like, I truly, because like the last time they were good, I was 5.
Mm-hmm.
Like truly, had never experienced being in a building for a baseball game like that in my life. And what I found so interesting about that game, I don't know if you recall this, before Russell hit that home run, you couldn't breathe in that building.
Oh yeah.
It was so tense in there and so fun.
It was 1-0 is what it was.
It was a 1-0 game. But like, oh, it was so fun.
And they, at the early stages of the quarantine, when they were out of things to show on television, they showed this on Sportsnet. And it was my first time seeing it on TV, and I was like, still giddy just watching it on TV. I was like, oh man, this is such great shit. Dustin Ackley started for the Yankees that day. That's
really,
yeah. There's a forgettable,
huh? Man, like it's funny. Like that season was. I know we've talked about this before on main show and on other story times, but that season was really just made up of so many little moments that we're never going to experience. We said this on the Price episode. We're never going to experience anything like that ever again.
Yeah. No, it was it is similar to where the Kawhi thing came out of nowhere, and the Kawhi season and the bounce and all that, getting over that hill for the first time, clinching the playoffs for the first time in 20 years. Those things are special, and it's different than coming back the next year and still being a good team and expecting to win. Not expecting it. The element of surprise is really the huge part of it. And speaking of surprises, and speaking of things we didn't expect to happen, and speaking of those special big moments, Marcus Stroman in that game we talked about with Russell Martin hitting the home run. Marcus Stroman started that game, and we started the 2015 season absolutely confident that Marcus Stroman was not going to throw a single pitch for the Blue Jays that year.
He's pitching this year. Was the rallying cry, I believe. Yeah, I remember his first game back was that doubleheader, also against the Yankees.
September 12th.
Marcus Stroman back in spring training in Dunedin, Florida. He tore his ACL, and he was told, "You are done for the season." Right then, Marcus Stroman said, "No way. I'll be back pitching in September," and here he is at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, don't ever measure a guy by what you tell him what you can't do. This guy, they told him he couldn't do it, and Marcus might be small in stature, but he's got a huge heart. He said, "I'm going to come back, and I'm going to come back and pitch in meaningful games in September." And wouldn't you know it, here he is getting ready for his first start of this season. That's what he did last year, 11-6 with 26 games for the Blue Jays. You got to figure that Marcus is fired up, excited. He's going to have to control his emotions. He's pitching in basically his hometown. He's very close from here in Long Island. And he's got a chance to pitch in a meaningful game in September to try and help the Blue Jays win the division. So
I remember that day I drank a mason jar of gin and tonic. Because it was an afternoon game for the first one, and Marcus Stroman was back. So, like, what else could we possibly do? And just, it was, 2015 Marcus Stroman was, and 2016 Marcus Stroman was really almost a you had to be there kind of experience, because he just captured that excitement so well. Mm-hmm. And everything about him, from his celebrations to his energy to the fact that he was really good, was just like you couldn't not get swept up in it in a lot of ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Stroman that year, 4 starts, 4 wins, 27 innings pitched, 20 hits allowed, 5 earned runs, 6 walks, 18 Ks, a 1.67 ERA in his 4 starts. He did not allow more than 1 run in his last 3 starts, and went 5 innings against the Yankees in that first start, as you said, and then 7 innings, 8 innings to close it out. So he went from too injured to pitch to a 7-inning, 8-inning guy right away, fresh off a devastating leg injury. Being right back into that was a truly special moment. Some of the other standout guys from from that time. Ryan Goins played 128 games. Ben Revere.
Man, 120 games of Ryan Goins, and that team was team won the AL East. That's how good that team was, that they had fucking Chris Colabello and Ryan Goins on the right side of the infield and won the AL East.
Chris Colabello, a 138 OPS plus that year. He hit 321, 367, 520, which I got to say, which is only fifth best on the team. Donaldson, well, fourth best. I don't think Darwin Barney's 15 games of 149 OPS plus count.
I don't think so.
Danny Valencia had a cup of coffee with this team. Steve Tolleson, Matt Haig. A lot of fun names.
Let's remember some guys.
I remember some guys. Jeff Francis made 14 appearances.
Right.
Yeah. Miguel Castro. Miguel Castro was, before Osuna grabbed the reins as a 20-year-old, Miguel Castro was the guy we spent all that time talking ourselves into.
Didn't we trade him for Tulo?
He was in the Tulo trade. That is absolutely correct.
And then, unfortunately, of course, Roberto Osuna mysteriously died.
Unfortunately.
And so couldn't pitch the rest of the season. But, who else we got? Scott Copeland? Okay. Let's Felix Doubront.
Oh, man, I remember that.
Ryan Tepera's been around. Wait, Ryan Tepera was around in 2015? Damn.
Yeah, 32 appearances. Ryan Tepera was your most used bullpen piece, other than, well, you're not your most used. Your most used, like, non-essential bullpen piece. There's some crazy numbers. Like, they used Osuna 68 times that year as a 20-year-old. They used Cecil.
I remember that. I remember that was like
times.
And that was like there was a lot of like bullpen management controversies this year. We'll get into some more bigger ones later. But I remember the Osuna of like, oh, they're throwing him too much as a 20-year-old, and now he's hurt, and maybe he'll never pitch again, which would definitely be a shame that we'd all be really sad about.
Whoops. Maybe it'll do that to you. Because they used him 72 times the next year, and then when you added in the playoffs, they used him like 200 times in 2 years. Man,
60 games from Aaron Loop is too many games from Aaron Loop.
60 games, but only 42 innings, so it is sort of...
I don't care. I don't... It's crazy. That bullpen though was crazy good.
Yeah, and you know what? When we look at it, you see Osuna and you see Cecil, who were very good. Aaron Sanchez was very good, and low key at the time, I did not appreciate it. Liam Hendricks had a very good year.
He really did. I was just looking at that too. ERA plus of 141, 64 innings, 5-0. He had 7, and then we trained for fucking Jesse Chavez. I was gonna bring this up in the 4th episode of Storytime, but we're talking about him now. I will never understand the Jesse Chavez for Liam Hendricks trade.
Yeah,
as long as I live, I will never understand it.
At the time, I blew it off as like, not a really big deal. You're trading a reliever for a reliever, but he has gone on to be a premier closer.
Yeah, and he was very good for us in 2015. Also, of course, the man that, for some reason, the only guy I could see when I went to games was Drew Hutchinson.
Yeah.
Drew Hutchinson's 2015 is extremely confusing. Somehow went 13-5 with a 5.5 ERA and an ERA plus of 74, but still struck out 129 guys.
The numbers really don't make any sense because... like, everyone has a positive record except for Dickey, who had an ERA under 4. Like, well, I don't understand.
Right.
But Hutch would either like completely explode when he showed up, or he would duck after like 3 innings.
Yeah.
And the team would score 7 runs after he got pulled out of the game. So, like, he would never lose because when he gave them a deficit, they would just score, and he would win. He'd give up 6 runs, and they would win 8-6.
And 31 appearances by Bo Schultz.
Wow, there's a name I would have forgotten.
Bo Schultz, 31 from Steve Delabar, 23 from Mark Lowe, 18 from LaTroy Hawkins, 13 from Castro. Castro, I believe, as to your point, he started the year as the closer, I think.
A little bit of Matthew Boyd as well. Made 2 appearances, got rocked, and then grew slowly into a halfway decent pitcher for the Tigers. A lot of guys coming in and out, not afraid to make trades. This was a couple years after, of course, the Jose Reyes trade to bring him in with Burley and Josh Johnson and all that giant Dickey as well. But at this point, Anthopoulos was like, we are 100% in. I am making 100 of these moves. And it paid off. I mean, they got Josh Donaldson to start the year. Halfway through the season, they go out, they get Troy Tulowitzki, they get David Price. This is all stuff, of course, we covered in the David Price story time. But
I will say, just looking at the numbers now for the first time in a long time, obviously Josh Donaldson's 2015 is ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
Jose and Edwin's 2015's
yeah.
Also ridiculous. I don't think I realized. I knew, like, obviously they were good because it's Jose and Edwin and they were great. But I don't think I realized that they were, like, that 3 of them almost had 40 home runs.
Yeah.
Like, man, Jose's 2015 was so good. Fuck, I miss Jose Bautista so much.
Yeah, to your point, Jose, 40 and 114, 110 walks to 106 strikeouts, a 250, 377, 536 line for a 145 OPS plus. Only slightly outdone by Edwin with 39 and 111, 77 walks to 98 strikeouts, 277, 372, 557 for a 929 OPS or a 148 OPS plus, if you will. A lot of danger in that lineup. We had a little bit of the controversy late was that Tulowitzki didn't want to lead off. If you remember, Tulowitzki led off basically from the end of July to the end of August. From the 29th to the 29th, all but 2 games he led off. And he didn't play in 3 games, he didn't lead off. But he was like, I want to hit 5th. Was big time what he wanted to do. So Ben Revere took over the leadoff duties as of the 30th of August and would hold those in every game the rest of the way, except for the 2 hangover games where Dalton Pompey led off the rest of the way. So he would move back down into the 5-hole, and then he got hurt, remember? We forget.
Yes, that's right. He crashed into Kevin Pillar. I believe in that Marcus Stroman doubleheader against the Yankees.
Hop into shallow center, and it's Tulowitzki that knocks Pillar over. They say the out was recorded. Second base umpire Chris Guccione saying that Tulowitzki held it in proper time, but now of more concern, Tulowitzki is down.
He gets hit right in the bat awkwardly, and then just almost drops down because of that feeling you get when you get jarred, rear-ended in a car or something. It's a delayed effect that you just... He let go of the ball. And if you're Toronto, you're hoping that's exactly what it is, just something temporary.
Perfect. You're looking at the lineups. Tulowitzki hits 5th for about 2 weeks and then mysteriously disappears and returns to the lineup with 3 games to go in the season.
And then was pretty good in the playoffs.
That's right. Speaking of the playoffs, that is where we are headed next. The Blue Jays were headed there after clinching the American League East crown. The unbelievable, out of nowhere American League East crown the Blue Jays grabbed that at the time I would not have believed, but did. A truly crazy and exciting time to be a fan of the Blue Jays. In episode 2, we will take you through the lead up to Blue Jays versus Royals. Got all kinds of stuff. You know what happens early on. We will recount it anyway in the very next episode of Sportsfeld Storytime.